The email arrived at 11:43 p.m. I would like to discuss concerns regarding your behavior in the workplace. I read the sentence 3 times while standing barefoot in my kitchen, the refrigerator humming softly behind me. My wine glass was still half full on the counter. Outside my apartment window, rain tapped against the fire escape in uneven bursts. At first, I honestly thought it had been sent to the wrong person. Behavior concerns? I barely even spoke at work unless someone approached me first. Then my phone buzzed. Lily. Hey, don't panic if I contact you tomorrow. Someone's been saying weird things. My stomach tightened instantly. Someone. Weird things. I stared at her message for almost a full minute before typing back. What things? The typing bubble appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then nothing. That silence felt worse than the email. My name is Brooke Sanders. I'm 35 years old, and until that night, I thought I had one of the healthiest friendships of my adult life. Lily Harper and I had known each other for almost 8 years. We met at a charity event downtown when both of us were volunteering at a silent auction table. She was loud, funny, confident in a way I always admired. I was quieter, more careful. We became close surprisingly fast. She used to joke that I was the stable one. You're the kind of person people trust immediately, she once told me over coffee. At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Now I hear it differently. 3 months before our email, Lily convinced me to apply for a position at her company, a branding agency called Mercer & Shore. The office sat on the 12th floor of a renovated brick building downtown, all exposed pipes, glass walls, and expensive espresso machines that hissed constantly in the background. You'd thrive here, Lily insisted. I remember hesitating. Working with friends always sounded dangerous to me. But Lily kept pushing. You're wasting yourself at that insurance office, she told me one night while we shared takeout noodles on my couch. You're smarter than half the people on my team. I laughed awkwardly. No, I'm just organized. Exactly, she said. And nobody there is. Eventually, I applied. And somehow, I got the job. At first, everything felt exciting. New routines. Better salary. Creative projects. My own desk near the windows overlooking the city. Lily introduced me to everyone personally. This is Brooke, she'd say proudly. My favorite person in the world. People smiled warmly at first. But little things started changing within weeks. Conversations stopped when I entered break rooms. Co-workers who once invited me to lunch suddenly forgot to ask. Slack messages became strangely formal. One afternoon, I walked into the office kitchen and heard my name. The moment they noticed me, silence dropped instantly. One of the designers grabbed her coffee and left without looking at me. The other forced a smile. Hey, Brooke. I smiled back, pretending not to notice the tension. But I did notice. Constantly. At home, I started replaying conversations in my head while brushing my teeth at night. Was I too quiet? Too serious? Too awkward? Maybe I wasn't fitting in the way I thought. But every time I brought it up, Lily brushed it away. You are overthinking everything, she said casually. Still, there was something strange in the way she watched me sometimes. Not concern. Observation. Like she was waiting for something. The next morning, I arrived at work 20 minutes early for the hour meeting. As I stepped out of the elevator, two co-workers standing near reception immediately stopped talking. One of them looked at me with open discomfort. The other looked guilty. That was the moment fear truly settled into my chest. Because suddenly, I realized this wasn't just gossip anymore. Someone had already decided who I was. And I had no idea why. Our conference room smelled faintly like lemon cleaner and burnt coffee. Everything about it felt intentionally neutral. Pale grey walls. Artificial plant in the corner. A bowl of untouched mints in the center of the table. I sat across from Melissa for a while. She folded her hands carefully over a leather notebook. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Brooke, this is just an informal conversation. People always say that right before ruining your life. I forced a smile anyway. Okay. Melissa glanced down at her notes. There have been concerns raised by multiple employees regarding interpersonal issues. I blinked slowly. What kind of issues? Another pause. Then the sentence that made my chest tighten. Some people feel uncomfortable around you. Uncomfortable. The word echoed in my head. I actually laughed softly at first because it sounded absurd. I barely talked to anyone. Melissa gave me a rehearsed sympathetic expression. According to reports, some coworkers feel you can be dismissive, emotionally cold, and occasionally manipulative in team settings. Manipulative. I felt heat crawl up my neck. That's not true. I'm not making accusations, she said quickly. We just want to ensure a healthy work environment. Healthy. The irony almost made me dizzy. I walked out of that meeting feeling like the floor underneath me had shifted slightly off balance. Like suddenly every interaction around me contained hidden meaning I couldn't fully see. Back at my desk, I noticed people glancing at me. Not openly. Quick little looks. Then immediate avoidance. I opened my laptop and tried focusing on a client presentation, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. A Slack notification popped up from Lily. Are done? I stared at the message. For some reason, I didn't want to answer honestly. Yeah. Weird misunderstanding. 3 dots appeared instantly. Told you not to panic. Smiley face. The smiley face bothered me more than it should have. That evening Lily insisted we grab drinks after work. You need to relax, she said. We sat at a rooftop bar 3 blocks from the office, string lights glowing above us while cold wind pushed through the patio. Below us, downtown traffic crawled through wet streets. Lily looked perfect as always. Effortlessly styled blonde hair. Gold earrings. Sharp black coat. Meanwhile, I felt exhausted. You know how offices are, she said while stirring her cocktail. People get insecure. Insecure about what? She shrugged casually. You came in and got attention fast. That surprised me. I never thought of myself as someone people noticed. I don't think anyone's jealous of me. Lily smiled strangely at that. You'd be surprised. For a moment, something passed across her face too quickly for me to understand. Annoyance, maybe. Or resentment. Then it disappeared. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You trust me, right? The question felt oddly timed. Of course. Good, she said quietly. On the train ride home, I kept replaying the conversation in my head. Especially the way she asked that question. You trust me, Right? Not. Are you okay? Not. What exactly did ours say? Just that. When I got home, I changed into pajamas and tried distracting myself with television, but my thoughts kept circling back to work. At 12:17 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then another message came immediately after. Check your email drafts folder. I froze. My pulse quickened instantly. There was no explanation. No name attached. Just that sentence. Hands shaking slightly, I opened my laptop on the couch and logged into my work email. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Inbox. Sent folder. Spam. Then I clicked drafts. And my stomach dropped. Because sitting there was a half-written anonymous complaint about me addressed to Our. A complaint I had never written. But somehow it had been saved from my account. I stared at the draft email so long my laptop screen dimmed twice. The subject line read: Concerns regarding toxic conduct within the team. Below it was half a paragraph accusing me of manipulating coworkers, spreading negativity, and creating emotional instability inside the department. The wording sounded strangely professional. Too professional. Not like something I would ever write. But the terrifying part wasn't the content. It was the timestamp. The draft had been created 3 nights earlier at 9:14 p.m. At exactly 9:14 p.m. 3 nights ago, I had been sitting across from Lily at an Italian restaurant near the river celebrating my first successful client pitch. I remembered because she insisted we take photos of the wine. I grabbed my phone and checked my gallery immediately. There it was. 9:12 p.m. Lily smiling at the camera while lifting her glass. My chest tightened. If I wasn't using my work account, then who was? I barely slept that night. Every small sound in my apartment made me jolt awake. Pipes knocking in the walls. Elevator cables moving down the hallway. Rain hitting the windows. By morning my stomach hurt from anxiety. I arrived at the office early again, hoping the quiet would help me think clearly. Instead, it made everything worse. The open office looked colder than usual under the pale fluorescent lights. Empty desks. Computer monitors glowing softly in sleep mode. Coffee smell lingering from the cleaning crew downstairs. I sat down and immediately changed my password. Then enabled two-factor authentication. My fingers moved fast, almost desperately. I kept telling myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe it logged in remotely. Maybe someone accidentally used my computer. Maybe. But deep down, fear was slowly turning into suspicion. Around 8:30, people started arriving. Most barely acknowledged me. One coworker, Daniel from Analytics, gave me an uncomfortable little nod before quickly walking away. That hurt more than open hostility somehow. Lily arrived 15 minutes later carrying iced coffee for both of us. Her smile appeared instantly when she saw me. There she is. She placed the drink beside my keyboard. Vanilla oat milk latte. My usual order. Rough night? She asked gently. I studied her face carefully for the first time in years. The tiny expressions. The pauses. The eyes. Was I imagining things, or did she look nervous? I couldn't sleep, I admitted. She lowered her voice. Still upset about Our? I hesitated. Then I decided not to mention the draft email. Not yet. Something inside me wanted to wait. Observe. I guess I'm just confused, I said carefully. Lily leaned against my desk. You know, people project their insecurities onto whoever seems stable. Again with that word. Stable. You keep saying that. Because it's true, she replied quickly. Then her tone shifted slightly. You have no idea how intimidating you can be sometimes. I blinked. Intimidating? You're very composed, she said. People take that personally. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the screen. And for 1 second, her entire expression changed. Sharp. Alert. Almost panicked. Then she locked the phone immediately. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said too fast. Just family stuff. But she slipped the phone into her pocket so quickly it looked automatic. Defensive. The rest of the day felt wrong. Not dramatically wrong. Quietly wrong. The kind of tension that settles into your skin. At lunch, I walked into the break room and heard 2 co-workers stop talking mid-sentence. One of them looked embarrassed. The other looked annoyed that I'd interrupted. Then I heard my own name. Broke silence. I opened the refrigerator slowly, pretending not to notice. My hands felt ice cold. As I closed the fridge door, I caught my reflection in the stainless steel surface. For the first time in weeks, I barely recognized myself. Tired eyes. Tense shoulders. Constant anxiety. And suddenly, a thought entered my head that terrified me. What if someone was trying to destroy me on purpose? That evening, while packing my bag to leave, I noticed Lily's laptop still open on her desk nearby. She was in a meeting room down the hall. I wasn't trying to snoop. At least, that's what I told myself. But then a Slack notification appeared on her screen. From someone named Vanessa. Did Brooke suspect anything yet? My entire body went numb. And before I could stop myself, I clicked the message. My hands were shaking so badly I almost missed the trackpad. The Slack window expanded across Lily's screen. I knew I should walk away. Close the laptop. Pretend I never saw anything. But my body moved before my conscience could catch up. Vanessa's message sat at the top of the chat. Did Brooke suspect anything yet? Below it, Lily had replied 30 minutes earlier. Not fully. Our meeting rattled her though. I stopped breathing for a second. Rattled her though. Not. She's upset. Not. I feel bad. Rattled her. Like this was some kind of experiment. My pulse pounded painfully in my ears as I scrolled higher. Most of the conversation was work-related. Deadlines. Client revisions. Team schedules. Then scattered between them, messages about me. Small ones at first. She's trying way too hard. People are noticing how fake she is. I told you she'd start acting superior eventually. My stomach twisted violently. Fake? Superior? I kept scrolling. Then I saw the message that made my vision blur. Vanessa. Honestly, I still don't get why you pushed so hard to hire her. Lily. Because it's easier when the problem is close enough to control. I physically stepped backward from the desk. For a moment, I honestly thought I might throw up. The problem. That was how she saw me. Not a friend. Not someone she loved. A problem. Footsteps echoed faintly from the hallway. I snapped the laptop shut instantly and hurried back toward my own desk, heart hammering so hard I thought people could hear it. When Lily returned 2 minutes later, she smiled at me exactly the same way she always did. Warm. Relaxed. Friendly. It terrified me. You heading out? She asked casually while slipping into her chair. Yeah, I said carefully. You okay? You look pale. I forced a tiny laugh. Just tired. Her eyes stayed on my face a second too long. Studying me. Measuring something. Then she smiled again. Get some rest. I practically fled the office. Outside, the evening air felt damp and cold against my skin. Traffic lights reflected red across puddles while people rushed past carrying umbrellas. But everything around me sounded distant now. Muffled. Unreal. I got into the subway and sat frozen for almost my entire ride home. 8 years. 8 years of birthdays, late-night phone calls, breakups, holidays, inside jokes. I remembered helping Lily move apartments after her divorce. Sitting on her kitchen floor while she cried into a paper towel because she couldn't afford the rent alone. I don't know what I'd do without you, she whispered back then. And now? Now she was coordinating my destruction through Slack messages. Part of me still wanted to believe there had to be context I didn't understand. Maybe I read it wrong. Maybe there was some explanation. Because the alternative was unbearable. When I got home, I immediately opened my laptop and started going through old messages between us. At first, I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Patterns, maybe. Cracks. Signs I ignored. And slowly, painfully, I started seeing them. Comments disguised as jokes. Subtle insults hidden inside compliments. Moments where Lily minimized my accomplishments seconds after celebrating them. When I got my promotion at my old company, she said, "Good thing they finally noticed you." When I lost 15 pounds, she laughed. Careful, confidence changes people. At the time, I brushed everything off. Now every memory felt poisoned. At 1:08 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You need to check who submitted the anonymous our complaints. A second message followed immediately. It wasn't just Lily. I stared at the screen as cold fear spread through my chest. Because suddenly this felt bigger than jealousy. Bigger than gossip. And for the first time, I realized something that truly scared me. There might be multiple people trying to destroy my reputation. And I still didn't know why. I didn't answer the anonymous messages. But I stopped deleting them. That alone scared me. Because some part of me had already accepted that whoever was texting me knew things they shouldn't know. The next morning, I sat in my car outside the office garage for nearly 10 minutes before forcing myself to go inside. My coffee had gone cold in the cup holder. My hands rested motionless on the steering wheel while anxiety crawled through my chest like static electricity. I kept thinking the same thing. What if everyone already believes them? The elevator ride to the 12th floor felt painfully long. 2 co-workers stood beside me in silence, both glued to their phones. Neither acknowledged me. Maybe they normally wouldn't have. But now every tiny interaction felt loaded with meaning. When the elevator doors opened, I immediately sensed something different. The atmosphere had shifted again. People weren't just avoiding me anymore. They were watching me. Subtly. Cautiously. Like I might explode at any moment. I tried focusing on work. Emails. Campaign revisions. Budget spreadsheets. But around 10:20 a.m., my manager Ethan appeared beside my desk. "Hey, Brooke. Got a minute?" His voice was friendly, but tight underneath. Controlled. He led me into one of the small glass meeting rooms near the windows. The blinds were partially closed, cutting pale stripes of sunlight across the table. Ethan sat down slowly. Then sighed. That sigh terrified me more than words. "What's going on?" I asked quietly. He rubbed the back of his neck. "There have been concerns raised again." Again. I felt my stomach drop. "About what?" He hesitated long enough to make my pulse spike. "Some people claim you've been discussing private salary information." "What?" "I'm not accusing you," he said quickly. "But our needs these things documented." I stared at him in disbelief. I've literally never discussed anyone's salary. I figured as much. Then why are we having this conversation? Another silence. Ethan avoided eye contact. And suddenly, something clicked painfully into place. He was uncomfortable. Not because he thought I was guilty. Because he knew something was wrong and didn't want to get involved. That realization felt almost worse. "How many complaints are there?" I asked carefully. His eyes flicked upward immediately. "Too fast." "Brooke, how many?" He exhaled quietly. "More than one." My chest tightened so hard it physically hurt. Someone was building a case against me. Systematically. Carefully. When I walked back into the office afterward, I noticed Lily watching me from across the room. The second our eyes met, she smiled sympathetically. That fake sympathy nearly broke something inside me. At lunch, I avoided everyone and ate alone downstairs near the loading dock behind the building. The concrete benches were damp from last night's rain, and delivery trucks kept rattling past the alley. I barely touched my food. Instead, I opened the anonymous texts again. Then finally typed back. "Who are you?" 3 minutes passed. Then, someone who made the mistake of trusting Lily first. A chill spread across my arms. I typed again. "What does she want from me?" This time the reply came instantly. "She thinks you take things that belong to her." I reread the sentence over and over. Take things? What things? Her job? Attention? Friends? Then another message appeared. You need to check the client transfer records from February. Before I could respond, footsteps approached behind me. I locked my phone instantly. Lily sat down beside me holding 2 iced coffees. Of course she had brought my usual order again. You disappeared, she said lightly. I just needed air. She studied my face for several seconds. Too carefully. Then she lowered her voice. People are starting to think you don't like them. I stared at her. Was she even hearing herself anymore? You know what's funny? She continued softly. You always look calm, but sometimes your silence feels aggressive. Aggressive. Another new accusation. Another carefully planted word. Suddenly I realized something horrifying. She wasn't just spreading rumors. She was slowly creating a version of me for other people to believe. And it was working. That night I couldn't stop thinking about the phrase. Client transfer records from February. I sat cross-legged on my couch with my work laptop balanced on my knees while city lights flickered through the apartment windows. The television played silently in the background, forgotten hours ago. At first, I told myself not to look. Digging deeper meant accepting this situation was real. But eventually curiosity overpowered fear. I logged into the internal client database and pulled archived account assignments from February. The moment the spreadsheet opened, my stomach tightened. 3 major accounts had been reassigned the same week I was hired. All 3 had originally belonged to Lily. Now 2 belonged to me. I frowned immediately. That didn't make sense. When I joined the company, management told me the accounts were redistributed because the department was overloaded. I remembered Lily acting supportive about it too. "You deserve high-value clients," she'd said. But staring at the numbers now, another possibility formed slowly in my mind. What if she never wanted to share them? I kept scrolling through the records. Then I noticed something else. One of the transferred clients, Bennett Cosmetics, had increased their contract value by almost 40% after I took over the campaign. My chest tightened again. I suddenly remembered a conversation from 6 weeks earlier. We'd been drinking wine at Lily's apartment while she vented about work. "I'm exhausted," she complained dramatically. "I practically built half this company." "You're one of their best employees," I told her honestly. She laughed bitterly. "Doesn't matter. People only notice whoever's new and shiny." At the time, I assumed she meant younger employees in general. Now I realized she might have meant me specifically. I leaned back slowly against the couch cushions. A terrible feeling was spreading through my body piece by piece. This wasn't random office gossip. This was resentment. Calculated resentment. My phone buzzed suddenly. "Lily. Are you awake?" I stared at the screen. Then, "Yeah." Her reply came instantly. "Can I call?" Every instinct told me no. But I answered anyway. Her voice sounded softer than usual. Fragile almost. "Hey," she whispered. "Hey." A pause lingered between us. Then she sighed heavily. "I feel like you've been distant." There it was again. That subtle shift. Not, "Are you okay?" but, "You're behaving differently." Like she was already preparing a narrative. "I've just been stressed," I said carefully. "Because of work?" "Partly." She went quiet for a second. Then laughed lightly. "You know, people can sense energy changes." I closed my eyes slowly. "What does that mean?" "It means," she paused delicately, "sometimes when people become more successful, they change without realizing it." There was something deeply unsettling about the calmness in her voice. Like every sentence had been rehearsed privately beforehand. "You think I've changed?" I asked quietly. Another pause. "I think attention affects everyone." Attention. Success. Aggressive. Cold. She kept feeding the same themes into conversations over and over. Like she was programming an identity around me. Suddenly I heard another voice faintly in the background of the call. Female. Laughing. "Are you with someone?" I asked immediately. The silence that followed lasted just a little too long. Just Vanessa, Lily answered casually. We're finishing tomorrow's presentation. My entire body went still. Vanessa. The same Vanessa from the Slack messages. The same woman helping destroy my reputation. And Lily sounded completely comfortable saying her name out loud. Like she assumed I still knew nothing. Brooke? Lily said carefully. I realized I hadn't spoken for several seconds. Yeah. Sorry. I'm tired. She murmured softly. Then her tone changed again. Sharp enough to make my chest tighten. Just remember something. What? No matter what people say around the office, I'm the one who's always protected you. Protected me. I barely slept after that call. Because for the first time, I finally understood what truly terrified me about Lily. It wasn't the lies. It was how calm she stayed while telling them. By Friday morning, I felt like I was living inside someone else's version of my life. Every conversation sounded rehearsed. Every smile looked fake. Every silence felt dangerous. I started noticing how often people stopped talking when I approached. How quickly coworkers minimized windows on their screens. How meetings became strangely formal whenever I spoke. And worst of all, nobody confronted me directly. That almost made the paranoia worse. Because there was nothing concrete to fight against. Just whispers. Looks. Distance. By noon, my anxiety had become physical. My jaw hurt from clenching it. My shoulders stayed tense even while sitting still. I kept replaying the anonymous texts in my head. She thinks you take things that belong to her. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became that this had started long before I joined Mercer and Shore. Maybe even before I realized Lily resented me at all. That afternoon, Ethan asked me to join a client strategy meeting on the 14th floor. Normally, I liked those meetings. They made me feel useful. This time I walked in already bracing myself. The conference room overlooked the river, grey clouds hanging low outside the windows. Around the table sat 6 people from different departments, including Vanessa. The moment I entered, she smiled politely. Too politely. Hey, Brooke. Her voice carried that careful friendliness people use when they secretly dislike someone. I sat across from her and opened my notebook. The meeting started normally enough. Budget projections. Audience metrics. Campaign revisions. Then halfway through, Ethan asked me to explain the Bennett Cosmetics growth strategy. I took a breath and began walking through the campaign improvements I'd implemented after taking over the account. For the first few minutes, everyone listened quietly. Then Vanessa interrupted. Well, she said lightly, to be fair, Lily already built the foundation for most of that success. The room went awkwardly silent. I looked at her carefully. I never said she didn't. Vanessa smiled. Of course. But the damage was already done. I could feel the shift in the room immediately. Tiny. Subtle. But real. Like I'd violated some invisible rule simply by speaking confidently about my own work. I continued the presentation anyway. But afterward, while everyone packed their laptops, I overheard Vanessa whisper something to another coworker near the door. She always does that. Does what? Exist? I pretended not to hear, but humiliation burned through me the entire elevator ride downstairs. Back at my desk, I found another hour meeting request waiting in my inbox. Monday, 9 a.m. No explanation. Just a calendar invite. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then Lily appeared beside me holding her phone. "You okay?" she asked softly. I almost laughed at the irony. "You seem stressed lately." There it was again. That narrative. That careful framing. Not, "You've been treated unfairly." But, "You seem emotionally unstable." I turned slowly toward her. For the first time in 8 years, I looked at her without automatically trusting her. And once that trust disappeared, I noticed everything. The satisfaction she tried to hide whenever I looked uncertain. The tiny pauses before fake concern. The way she subtly watched other people's reactions around me. Collecting information. Measuring progress. "You know what's weird?" I said quietly. Her expression tightened slightly. "What?" "I can't tell anymore whether you're my friend or just someone studying me." For 1 second, something cold flashed across her face. Gone almost immediately. Then she laughed softly. "Wow. That's a little dramatic." Dramatic. Another label. Another brick added to the version of me she was constructing. I stood up slowly. "I'm going home early. Do you want me to come with you?" she asked instantly. The speed of the question made my skin crawl. "No." Her eyes narrowed almost invisibly. Then she smiled again. "Okay. Get some rest." That evening, I finally did something I never imagined myself doing. I contacted the anonymous number again. "I need proof." This time, the response came almost immediately. "Then check the security footage from March 3rd. I frowned. "What happened March 3rd? 3 dots appeared. Then, "That's the night Lily accessed your desk after everyone left." I didn't sleep at all that weekend. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily standing beside my desk after hours. Touching my keyboard. Opening my drawers. Logging into my accounts. And somehow, the worst part wasn't even the possibility that she'd sabotaged me. It was the realization that she probably smiled at me the next morning like nothing happened. By Sunday afternoon, I finally convinced myself I was being paranoid. Security footage? That sounded insane. Companies don't just hand over camera access because an employee feels anxious. Still, the thought kept clawing at me. So Monday morning, before my meeting, I did something reckless. I went directly to building security. The security office sat in the basement beside the loading docks, hidden behind a grey metal door most employees probably never noticed. The room smelled like dust and burnt coffee. Old monitors flickered across one entire wall. A tired-looking man named Carl sat behind the desk. "Can I help you?" At first I almost backed out. Then I remembered the draft email. The hour complaints. The Slack messages. And suddenly fear became stronger than embarrassment. "I think someone accessed my workstation after hours." Carl frowned immediately. "Do you know when?" "March 3rd. He hesitated. "We normally only release footage through management." "I understand," I said quickly. I need to know if I'm imagining things." Something in my face must have convinced him. Because after a long pause, he sighed quietly and turned toward the monitors. Give me a minute. My pulse hammered so hard I thought I might pass out. Carl pulled up footage from the 12th floor. 11:42 p.m. Most of the office was dark except for the emergency lights. Empty desks. Silent hallways. Blue computer screens glowing faintly. Then movement appeared. A woman entering from the west corridor. Blonde hair. Long black coat. Lily. Every muscle in my body locked instantly. She walked calmly through the office like she belonged there. Because she did. Carl fast-forwarded. Lily stopped beside my desk. Then looked around carefully. Even on silent footage, her behavior screamed secrecy. My mouth went dry. What is she doing? Carl muttered. I watched Lily sit in my chair. She opened my laptop. Typed something. Then reached into my desk drawer. A full minute passed. 2. 3. She stayed there almost 11 minutes. 11 minutes at my workstation after midnight. When the footage ended, the room felt suddenly too small to breathe in. Carl looked at me carefully. Do you want me to report this? My brain screamed yes. But fear answered first. No. The word shocked even me. Carl frowned. You sure? I nodded automatically. Because suddenly another terrifying realization had formed in my head. If Lily really did this, then she probably already knew how to manipulate the situation. And if I accused her without proof of what she accessed, she could twist everything against me. Again. I left the security office shaking. At 8:57 a.m., I walked into our meeting feeling like I was heading toward an execution. Melissa was already waiting. This time Ethan sat beside her. That immediately made my stomach drop. Brooke, Melissa began carefully, we've received additional concerns regarding workplace hostility. Hostility. The word barely sounded real anymore. I looked directly at Ethan. Do you actually believe any of this? He looked uncomfortable instantly. Melissa jumped in before he could answer. This isn't about belief. It's about patterns. Patterns. I almost laughed. Someone had spent months manufacturing those patterns. Then Melissa opened a folder. Inside were printed screenshots. Slack messages. Emails. Internal comments. All supposedly written by me. But they weren't. My vision blurred as I scanned the pages. Messages criticizing coworkers. Passive-aggressive comments. Complaints about management. Somebody had built an entire fake personality using my name. And then I saw the timestamp on one message. March 3rd. 11:51 p.m. My blood turned ice cold. Because that message was sent during the exact time Lily sat at my desk. For a few seconds, I couldn't hear anything in our room anymore. Melissa was still talking. Ethan was still sitting beside her. The air conditioner hummed softly overhead. But all I could focus on was the timestamp. 11:51 p.m. March 3rd. While Lily sat at my desk. My fingers tightened around the papers so hard they started bending at the corners. Brooke? Melissa asked carefully. Are you all right? No. I wasn't all right. Because suddenly the entire nightmare finally made sense. The anonymous complaints. The growing hostility. The fake messages. The carefully repeated words. cold, aggressive, manipulative, dramatic. Lily hadn't just damaged my reputation. She had been building a replacement identity for me inside the company. One ugly enough that eventually nobody would question removing me. "I didn't write these," I said quietly. Melissa exchanged a quick glance with Ethan. "We understand this situation is upsetting." "No," I interrupted. My voice came out sharper than intended. "I'm telling you, someone else wrote them." The room went silent. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Brooke, that's a serious accusation." I almost laughed. Accusation? Someone had spent months psychologically dismantling me, and suddenly I was the dangerous one for saying it out loud. "I have security footage," I said. That changed everything instantly. Melissa's expression froze. Ethan blinked. "What kind of footage?" he asked carefully. I swallowed hard. Footage of Lily at my desk after midnight on March 3rd. During the exact time these messages were sent. Nobody spoke. Not immediately. And in that silence, I saw something that terrified me even more than the sabotage itself. Recognition. Not shock. Recognition. Like part of them already suspected Lily crossed boundaries. Melissa straightened slowly in her chair. "We'd need to review any evidence officially." "I know." Ethan rubbed his jaw tensely. "Why would she do this?" That question hurt more than anything. Because I still didn't fully know. Jealousy? Control? Resentment? Maybe all three. The meeting ended awkwardly after that. Melissa said they would pause further action pending investigation. Such clinical words for something destroying my life. When I stepped back into the office, the atmosphere felt immediately different. Like news had already spread somehow. Vanessa looked up from her computer the moment she saw me. And for the first time since this nightmare started, she looked nervous. Actually nervous. Not smug. Not superior. Afraid. That tiny crack in her composure gave me enough adrenaline to finally stop feeling helpless. I walked directly to my desk. Then opened my laptop. And started documenting everything. Screenshots. Dates. Messages. Timeline notes. Hours passed without me noticing. The deeper I dug, the uglier it became. Several anonymous complaints had originated from internal devices assigned to Lily's department. Multiple Slack screenshots shown to our were cropped strategically to remove context. And worst of all, I found deleted login alerts in my email trash folder. Login attempts from Lily's office computer. My entire body felt numb. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was calculated sabotage. At 6:40 p.m., most employees had gone home. The office lights dimmed automatically into evening mode. That's when I heard heels approaching behind me. I turned slowly. Lily stood there holding her purse. Her face looked calm. Too calm. "You've been avoiding me all day," she said softly. I stared at her. For the first time, I felt something stronger than fear. Anger. Real anger. "Did you access my accounts?" I asked. No hesitation. No confusion. No surprise. Just a tiny pause. Then, "Where?" She actually smiled. A small, disappointed smile. "That's what this has become?" I stood up so fast my chair rolled backward. Answer me. Her eyes hardened slightly. And suddenly the warmth disappeared completely. You know what your problem is, Brooke? She said quietly. You always need to be the good person. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Because that voice, that wasn't my friend anymore. Maybe it never was. Then Lily stepped closer and lowered her voice almost to a whisper. You should have stayed at your old job. For a second, neither of us moved. The office around us sat nearly dark except for rows of dim ceiling lights and the blue glow of computer monitors left in sleep mode. Somewhere far down the hallway, I could hear the cleaning crew vacuuming carpets. But inside that moment, everything felt painfully still. You wanted me here, I said quietly. Lily tilted her head. Did I? I stared at her in disbelief. You practically begged me to apply. A small smile touched her mouth. Yes. I did. There was something terrifying about how calm she looked now. No guilt. No panic. No shame. Just exhaustion. Like she was finally tired of pretending. Why? I whispered. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine emotion flicker across her face. Not sadness. Resentment. Deep resentment. You know what people say about you? She asked softly. I didn't answer. They trust you immediately. The exact same sentence she used years ago at the coffee shop. But this time it sounded hateful. You walk into rooms and people relax around you, she continued. You don't even try. It just happens naturally. I felt cold all over. Lily, no, listen to me for once. Her voice sharpened suddenly. I spent years building relationships in this company. Years. Staying late. Taking impossible clients. Cleaning up other people's mistakes. Her eyes locked onto mine. And then you arrive. The words landed like stones. You became everyone's favorite in 3 months. That's not true. It is true. Now the anger was visible. Finally visible. You know what Ethan said after your first presentation? She continued bitterly. Brooke has a calming presence, she laughed once. Coldly. A calming presence. I remembered that meeting. I remembered Lily smiling afterward. Congratulating me. The memory made me feel physically sick now. You could have talked to me, I said quietly. I tried. No. You manipulated me. Her expression hardened instantly. You think you're innocent in all this? I stared at her. What does that even mean? She stepped closer again. You take space without realizing it, she whispered. People rearrange themselves around you. And you act like it's accidental. The words sounded deeply personal. Old. Festering. This wasn't about one promotion. Or one client. This resentment had been growing for years. Suddenly I remembered dozens of moments differently. Parties where people drifted toward me while Lily became quieter. Co-workers complimenting my work in front of her. Friends calling me easy to talk to. Tiny harmless moments. Except maybe they weren't harmless to her. You destroyed my reputation, I said. Her jaw tightened. You were going to replace me. I never wanted your position. But you still took it. Silence crashed between us. And then she said the one thing that finally shattered whatever remained of our friendship. You were easier to control before you became confident. The sentence hit me so hard I physically stopped breathing for a second. Because suddenly everything made sense. Not just the office sabotage. The years of subtle comments. The disguised insults. The careful lowering of my confidence whenever I succeeded. She didn't want me broken. She wanted me smaller. Manageable. The realization hurt more than the betrayal itself. My eyes burned instantly. Lily noticed. And for one horrifying moment she looked satisfied. That expression broke something inside me permanently. I grabbed my bag slowly. We're done. She crossed her arms. So dramatic. No, I said quietly. I was dramatic when I still thought you cared about me. For the first time all evening, uncertainty flickered across her face. Just briefly. Then she recovered. You really think people are suddenly going to believe you? That question followed me all the way home. Because deep down, I still didn't know the answer. And at 11:14 p.m. that night, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She's deleting evidence tonight. I read the message 3 times before responding. What evidence? The reply came immediately. Emails. Login records. Our files. A second message followed. She's not alone. I stared at the screen while cold panic spread through my chest again. Not alone. Even after everything I'd uncovered, part of me still wanted this to be only Lily. One damaged friendship. One jealous person spiraling out of control. But this sounded organized. Careful. And suddenly I understood why Vanessa looked nervous earlier. Because this wasn't just gossip anymore. It was risk. At 11:32 p.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table with every light in the apartment turned on, my laptop open, screenshots scattered across the screen, when another notification appeared. This time it wasn't from the anonymous number. It was from Ethan. Are you awake? My pulse jumped instantly. After a long hesitation, I replied, yes. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. I think you need to know our already suspected internal manipulation before today. I sat upright immediately. What? His reply took almost a full minute. There were inconsistencies in the complaints. I felt anger surge through me so suddenly it almost made my hands shake. If they suspected that, why didn't anyone tell me? No response. Then finally. Because Lily has been with the company for 7 years. I stared at the message in disbelief. That was it. Trust. History. Reputation. Lily had spent years building credibility while quietly destroying mine. Another message appeared. She told people you were emotionally unstable after your divorce. My stomach dropped. Only 3 people at work even knew details about my divorce. Ethan. Vanessa. Lily. I suddenly remembered crying in Lily's apartment almost a year earlier after signing the divorce papers. I feel like I failed, I whispered back then. She hugged me tightly. No, Brooke. You're just fragile right now. Fragile. At the time it sounded comforting. Now I realized she had been labeling me for years. Carefully. Patiently. Every vulnerable moment I shared with her had become material. I typed quickly. Did I believe her? A long pause. Then. Some people did. That sentence hurt more than I expected. Because no matter what evidence appeared now, damage had already happened. People had discussed me behind closed doors. Questioned my personality. Reinterpreted my behavior through Lily's version of reality. You can defend yourself from accusations. But it's almost impossible to defend yourself from perception. At 12:06 a.m., my phone suddenly started ringing. Lily. I froze, staring at the screen. Then answered. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she exhaled softly. You're talking to people. Not a question. A statement. I'm finally learning the truth. A bitter laugh escaped her. The truth? You sabotaged me. No, she snapped suddenly. I protected what was mine. Mine. The possessiveness in her voice made my skin crawl. You forged messages. You manipulated our. You forced me to. The words hit like ice water. What? You changed after joining the company. That's insane. No, she said quietly. You stopped needing me. Silence filled the call. And then she said something that genuinely frightened me. You know what your problem is, Brooke? I closed my eyes. You still think this is about work? A chill moved slowly down my spine. What does that mean? Another pause. Then, softly. You were never supposed to become independent from me. My entire body went cold. Because suddenly this wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was control. Emotional control. The kind that grows slowly over years until you don't even recognize it while it's happening. I remembered all the times Lily discouraged me from dating. All the moments she subtly mocked my ambitions. Every conversation where she framed herself as the only person who truly understood me. Isolation disguised as friendship. You need help, I whispered. For the first time, Lily sounded emotional too. You abandoned me first. Then the line went dead. I sat motionless in my kitchen long after the call ended. And somewhere around 1 a.m., a terrifying realization finally settled into place. This story wasn't ending with our or office politics. Because Lily didn't just want me gone from the company. She wanted me dependent on her again. 3 months after leaving Mercer and Shore, I changed my phone number. Not because Lily contacted me again. She didn't. After the investigation became official, she disappeared completely from my life. No final apology. No dramatic explanation. No attempt to repair the damage. Just silence. At first, that silence hurt more than I expected. 8 years of friendship reduced to nothing. No closure. No real ending. Just absence. But therapy taught me something uncomfortable. Closure is not always something another person gives you. Sometimes closure is simply accepting that the version of them you loved never truly existed the way you believed it did. I wish I could say I recovered quickly. I didn't. For weeks after leaving the company, I still checked my emails with anxiety twisting in my stomach. I still overanalyzed people's expressions. Still panicked whenever conversations suddenly became quiet around me. Once, at a grocery store, I heard 2 women whispering near me and instantly assumed they were talking about me. That's what prolonged manipulation does. It rewires your nervous system. It teaches you to anticipate humiliation before it happens. And the hardest part? Realizing how long I confused control with love. Looking back now, the signs seem painfully obvious. Lily discouraging relationships that didn't include her. Subtly mocking my confidence whenever it grew. Framing independence as selfishness. Making herself the center of every emotional crisis in my life. But manipulation rarely arrives looking cruel in the beginning. Sometimes it looks like loyalty, protection, concern. Sometimes it sounds like, I'm the only person you can trust. About a month after I resigned, Ethan called me. Apparently, several employees came forward after the investigation started. Vanessa admitted Lily often pushed negative narratives about me behind my back. Other co-workers confessed they noticed inconsistencies earlier but were afraid to get involved. That part stung. Not because I hated them. Because it reminded me how easily silence protects harmful people. Ethan also told me something else I still think about sometimes. After I left, one co-worker supposedly asked Lily why she hated me so much. And according to Ethan, Lily answered, I didn't hate her. I just couldn't stand feeling invisible next to her. When he told me that, I sat quietly for a very long time. Because honestly, part of me still felt sad for her. Not excusing her. Not forgiving what she did. Just sad. Imagine destroying someone you love because their growth feels like your disappearance. That kind of loneliness must be unbearable. But another person's pain cannot become permission to destroy your identity. That lesson cost me almost everything to learn. Today, I work for a smaller creative agency across the city. Nobody there knows the full story. And I prefer it that way. My office is quieter. Healthier. Less performative. Sometimes I still catch myself apologizing too much in meetings. Still shrinking instinctively before sharing ideas. Healing isn't dramatic. It's slow. Awkward. Private. It's teaching your body that safety still exists after betrayal. Last week, one of my new co-workers smiled after a presentation and said, "You have a calming presence." For a split second, my chest tightened. Old memories. Old fear. Then something surprising happened. I smiled back. Not because the words no longer hurt, but because they finally belonged to me again. And maybe that's the real ending to this story. Not revenge. Not humiliation. Not even justice. Just this. I stopped making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. And I think that saved my life.